My name is Sarah Mitchell, and 3 years ago I thought I had everything figured out. I was the director of digital marketing at GreenTech Solutions, pulling in six figures, living in a beautiful Craftsman home in Portland's trendy Hawthorne District with my husband David. I had worked my way up from an entry-level marketing coordinator to running campaigns that brought in millions of dollars for the company. My corner office on the 15th floor had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River, and I genuinely believed that hard work and talent were all you needed to succeed in corporate America. Then my mother-in-law's gardening friend got promoted to chief growth officer, and she systematically pruned my career down to nothing, cutting away everything I had built branch by branch until I was left with bare roots and a devastating choice that would change everything. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. At 31, I had convinced myself that I understood how the corporate world operated. Success came to those who delivered results, exceeded targets, and demonstrated unwavering commitment to company growth. My office walls displayed framed certificates from digital marketing conferences, awards from industry publications, and photographs from company events where I stood beside executives celebrating another record-breaking quarter. The latest was from our Q3 celebration, where my campaign for GreenTech's new solar panel line had exceeded projected engagement by 230%, translating to $15 million in new contracts. My success wasn't accidental or lucky. It was the product of 12-hour days, weekend strategy sessions, and a relentless focus on innovation that had transformed GreenTech's brand presence from regional obscurity to national recognition. My personal life seemed equally well orchestrated. David and I had been married for 4 years, having met during my MBA program at Portland State University. He worked as a civil engineer for the city, designing sustainable infrastructure projects that aligned perfectly with my own professional focus on environmental technology. We had purchased our 1920s Craftsman house in Hawthorne District 2 years earlier, drawn to its original hardwood floors, built-in bookshelves, and the small but meticulously maintained garden that David had inherited from the previous owners. Every morning I would drink my coffee on the back porch, reviewing industry reports while David tended to the tomatoes and herbs that supplied our kitchen throughout the growing season. Our life had a rhythm that felt both productive and sustainable, a carefully balanced ecosystem where personal fulfillment and professional ambition coexisted harmoniously. The Mitchell family dynamics had initially seemed refreshingly straightforward compared to the corporate politics I navigated daily. David's parents, Frank and Patricia, had been married for 38 years and lived in a sprawling ranch house in suburban Beaverton, complete with Patricia's famous garden that had been featured twice in Portland Home and Garden magazine. Frank, a retired postal worker, spent his days woodworking in the garage and following the Portland timbers with religious devotion. Patricia had dedicated her retirement to transforming their 2-acre property into what she called her living masterpiece, complete with themed sections, seasonal plantings, and a greenhouse where she started seedlings for half the neighborhood. Family gatherings typically revolved around Patricia's elaborate dinner parties, where she would guide guests through garden tours that highlighted her latest botanical acquisitions and design innovations. What I had initially interpreted as Patricia's mild disapproval of my career-focused lifestyle seemed typical of generational differences. She would make subtle comments about the long hours I worked, suggest that David and I should think about starting a family, or mention how nice it would be if I took up gardening as a hobby to better understand the natural rhythms that governed healthy growth. These observations felt like standard mother-in-law territory, the kind of gentle pressure that many married couples navigate without significant conflict. David would deflect with humor, changing subjects to his latest infrastructure projects or asking about her prize-winning dahlias, and I learned to smile and nod while mentally reviewing marketing strategies for Monday morning presentations. The introduction of Linda Thompson into our family circle occurred so gradually that I didn't recognize its significance until much later. Patricia had met Linda at a master gardener workshop the previous spring, and their shared passion for heirloom vegetables had quickly evolved into a close friendship. Linda was recently divorced, having relocated to Portland from Seattle after her marriage ended, and Patricia had essentially adopted her as a surrogate daughter who shared her botanical interests. Linda began appearing at family gatherings, first as Patricia's guest who happened to know an impressive amount about companion planting and soil pH levels, then as a regular presence who helped Patricia plan seasonal garden rotations and research exotic plant varieties. At first, Linda seemed unremarkable in the way that many of Patricia's gardening friends were unremarkable. She was in her early 40s, with graying blonde hair that she wore in a practical ponytail and a wardrobe that consisted primarily of earth-tone cardigans and comfortable walking shoes. Her conversation revolved around organic pest control methods, the benefits of rainwater collection, and her ongoing efforts to establish a wildlife habitat in her new backyard. She worked in corporate communications, she mentioned vaguely, but seemed far more animated discussing her plans to convert her front lawn into a pollinator garden than talking about her professional responsibilities. I appreciated her genuine enthusiasm for environmental sustainability, which aligned with my own values even if I expressed them through marketing campaigns rather than composting systems. The shift in Linda's status within our family began subtly, emerging through small changes that felt natural rather than calculated. Patricia started referring to gardening decisions as collaborative projects, mentioning that Linda and I had decided to try vertical growing methods or experiment with permaculture principles. Linda's opinions began carrying weight in family discussions, not just about botanical matters but about broader topics like sustainable living practices, local politics, and even restaurant recommendations. David seemed genuinely fond of Linda, appreciating her willingness to help his mother with physically demanding garden projects and her knowledge about environmental issues that connected to his own work in sustainable.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Infrastructure development. My first indication that Linda possessed professional capabilities beyond organic vegetable production came during a casual conversation at Patricia's 4th of July barbecue. We were standing near the impressive herb spiral that Linda had helped design and install, watching Frank demonstrate his latest woodworking project to a group of neighbors, when Linda mentioned that her company was expanding their sustainability initiatives. She described a recent presentation she had given to senior management about integrating environmental messaging into corporate communications, explaining how she had researched industry best practices and developed recommendations for authentic brand positioning around ecological responsibility. Her description revealed sophisticated understanding of marketing strategy, competitive analysis, and stakeholder engagement that surprised me. This wasn't the casual interest of an environmentally conscious consumer, but the professional expertise of someone who understood corporate communication at a strategic level. Curiosity prompted me to ask more specific questions about her work, and Linda's responses revealed that she held a senior position at Cascade Industries, a mid-sized consulting firm that specialized in organizational development for technology companies. She had been with the company for 8 years, having joined as a communications coordinator, and gradually expanded her responsibilities to include client relationship management, strategic planning, and business development. Her recent divorce had coincided with a promotion to Director of Client Services, a role that required her to oversee account teams and develop new service offerings for emerging markets. As she described her professional experience, I recognized the same analytical approach to problem-solving that had driven my own career advancement, the ability to identify opportunities and develop systematic strategies for capitalizing on them. The conversation took an interesting turn when Linda asked about my work at GreenTech Solutions. Her questions demonstrated familiarity with the sustainable technology sector that went beyond casual environmental interest. She knew about our recent partnership with Pacific Solar, understood the competitive landscape that shaped our marketing challenges, and had apparently followed our brand evolution through industry publications. When I mentioned the solar panel campaign that had exceeded engagement targets, Linda's response revealed sophisticated understanding of digital marketing metrics, customer acquisition costs, and the correlation between brand awareness and sales conversion rates. Her insights about potential market expansion opportunities and untapped demographic segments matched the quality of analysis I typically received from expensive consulting firms. As the evening progressed, Linda and I found ourselves engaged in increasingly detailed discussions about corporate sustainability initiatives, the challenges of authentic environmental messaging, and the growing consumer demand for transparent business practices. She shared examples from her client work that demonstrated creative approaches to stakeholder engagement, and I described marketing strategies that had successfully positioned GreenTech as an industry leader in responsible innovation. Our professional chemistry was immediately apparent, the easy flow of ideas between two people who understood the complexities of corporate communication and appreciated the intellectual challenges involved in strategic thinking. By the time David and I left that evening, Linda had my business card and an invitation to continue our conversation over coffee. That invitation led to a meeting at Blue Moon Cafe in the Pearl District, where Linda and I spent 3 hours discussing everything from content marketing strategies to the ethical implications of corporate environmental claims. Linda's perspective combined practical business experience with genuine commitment to ecological principles, a balance I found both refreshing and professionally relevant. She understood that effective sustainability messaging required authenticity backed by substantive action, that consumers were increasingly sophisticated about detecting greenwashing, and that companies needed to demonstrate measurable environmental impact rather than simply adopting fashionable terminology. Her insights challenged some of my assumptions about audience segmentation and brand positioning, offering new frameworks for thinking about GreenTech's market opportunities. The professional relationship that developed from that coffee meeting felt organic and mutually beneficial. Linda would occasionally forward articles about emerging trends in sustainable technology, and I would share insights about digital marketing innovations that might benefit her client work. We discovered that our companies operated in complementary rather than competitive spaces, creating opportunities for information exchange that enhanced both our professional effectiveness. When Linda mentioned that Cascade Industries was seeking partners for a major sustainability consulting project, I introduced her to my colleague Marcus Chen, who managed GreenTech's business development initiatives. The resulting collaboration generated revenue for both companies and strengthened Linda's reputation within her organization as someone who could identify and develop valuable strategic partnerships. During this period, Patricia's pride in Linda's professional accomplishments became increasingly evident. Family conversations frequently included updates about Linda's latest client successes, her innovative project management approaches, or recognition she had received from industry associations. Patricia seemed to view Linda's career advancement as validation of her own judgment about character and potential, often noting how Linda's combination of environmental consciousness and business acumen represented exactly the kind of leadership that modern companies needed. These observations carried an implicit contrast to my own work, which Patricia characterized as technically impressive, but somehow less meaningful than Linda's direct contribution to ecological improvement and corporate responsibility. The subtle comparison between Linda's and my professional approaches initially seemed harmless, even healthy competition between two accomplished women who happened to move in similar circles. Patricia would mention Linda's latest achievement at company dinner parties, describing client presentations that had secured major contracts or strategic initiatives that had earned recognition from industry publications. These updates were typically followed by polite inquiries about my own work, questions that seemed designed to elicit comparable success stories, but somehow always left me feeling that my accomplishments required more justification or explanation than Linda's more apparently noble endeavors in corporate sustainability consulting. As autumn progressed, Linda's presence in our family gatherings became more prominent, her opinions carrying increasing weight in discussions that extended far beyond gardening and environmental topics. She would offer insights about economic trends, local political developments, and even relationship advice with the confidence of someone whose judgment was consistently validated by results. David began seeking her perspective on his infrastructure projects, appreciating her ability to identify potential obstacles and suggest innovative solutions that satisfied both environmental and practical requirements. Frank would ask her opinion about investment strategies, having learned that her client work provided valuable insights into market trends and emerging opportunities. My relationship with Linda remained collegial and professionally productive, but I began noticing subtle changes in the dynamic of our interactions. Conversations that had previously felt collaborative increasingly took on the quality of Linda sharing expertise with someone who might benefit from her superior understanding of corporate strategy and environmental messaging. Her questions about my work shifted from genuine curiosity to what felt like gentle assessment, evaluating whether my approaches aligned with current best practices or represented outdated thinking about brand development and audience engagement. When I shared successful campaign results, Linda would acknowledge the achievements while suggesting alternative strategies that might have produced even better outcomes or addressed broader strategic objectives. The first concrete indication that Linda's influence might extend beyond family gatherings and professional networking came during GreenTech's annual holiday party in December. The event, held at the elegant Garden Room restaurant in the Pearl District, brought together employees, clients, and industry partners for an evening of celebrating the year's achievements and building relationships that would support future growth. I had coordinated the entire event, from venue selection to speaker arrangements, ensuring that every detail reflected GreenTech's commitment to both professional excellence and environmental responsibility. The evening had proceeded flawlessly, with positive feedback from attendees and several promising conversations about potential partnerships for the coming year. Near the end of the evening, as I was thanking the catering staff and coordinating final details, I noticed Linda deep in conversation with Robert Harrison, GreenTech's CEO. They stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the city lights, their discussion animated and clearly substantive, rather than social. Linda was dressed more formally than usual, in a navy blue dress and professional blazer that transformed her appearance from Patricia's gardening companion to a sophisticated business executive. Her posture conveyed confidence and authority as she gestured toward documents she had apparently brought to share with Robert, her expression focused and persuasive, in a way I had never observed during family gatherings. The sight of Linda engaging Robert in what appeared to be a serious business discussion at GreenTech's holiday party struck me as unusual, but not necessarily concerning. She had legitimate professional credentials and existing connections to our industry through her consulting work, so her presence at the event and her conversation with our CEO could be explained through normal networking activities. When I approached to join the conversation, both Robert and Linda greeted me warmly, and Linda mentioned that she had been sharing some insights about sustainability trends that might be relevant to GreenTech's strategic planning process. Robert expressed appreciation for her perspective and suggested that we should arrange a more formal meeting to explore potential collaboration opportunities. That potential collaboration materialized more quickly than I had anticipated. Within 2 weeks of the holiday party, Robert had scheduled a meeting to discuss Cascade Industries' capabilities for supporting GreenTech's expansion into new markets. The session included Linda, her immediate supervisor, Marcus Chen from our business development team, and myself, as the marketing director, who would coordinate messaging for any new initiatives. Linda's presentation demonstrated sophisticated understanding of GreenTech's competitive position, growth opportunities, and the strategic challenges we faced in scaling our operations while maintaining our environmental commitments. Her recommendations were well-researched, innovative, and directly applicable to decisions that senior management had been grappling with for months. More impressive than the quality of Linda's analysis was the evident preparation she had invested in understanding GreenTech's specific circumstances. She referenced internal information about our client acquisition costs, seasonal fluctuations in demand, and competitive pressures that suggested access to detailed market intelligence. Her proposed timeline for implementing new sustainability initiatives aligned perfectly with our product development schedule, and her budget projections reflected accurate understanding of our resource constraints and funding priorities. The presentation felt less like an external consultant pitching services and more like an internal strategic plan developed by someone with intimate knowledge of our organization's capabilities and limitations. Part 2: The Perfect World Illusion. The success of Linda's initial presentation to GreenTech's leadership team opened doors that I hadn't realized existed within our organization's strategic planning process. Within a month, Cascade Industries had secured a consulting contract to develop what Robert Harrison termed our next-generation sustainability framework, a comprehensive approach to integrating environmental responsibility into every aspect of our business operations. The project represented exactly the kind of forward-thinking initiative that had attracted me to GreenTech in the first place, combining genuine ecological impact with sound business strategy in ways that would position us as industry leaders for years to come. Linda's role as the primary consultant meant that she would be working closely with our executive team, spending significant time in our offices, and contributing to decisions that would shape the company's future direction. The integration of Linda into GreenTech's strategic planning process felt seamless and professionally appropriate. Her background in organizational development and sustainability consulting provided exactly the expertise we needed to navigate the complex challenges of scaling our environmental initiatives without compromising our operational efficiency or profit margins. During the initial project meetings, Linda demonstrated remarkable ability to synthesize information from multiple departments, identify connections between seemingly unrelated challenges, and propose solutions that addressed both immediate concerns and long-term objectives. Her collaborative approach encouraged input from team members at all levels, creating an inclusive planning process that generated enthusiasm and buy-in throughout the organization. My own involvement in the Sustainability Framework project positioned me as Linda's primary internal liaison, responsible for coordinating between her consulting team and GreenTech's various departments. The role felt like a natural extension of my marketing responsibilities, requiring me to translate strategic concepts into actionable communication plans, while ensuring that all stakeholders understood their roles in implementing the new initiatives. Linda and I worked closely together, spending hours reviewing market research, analyzing competitor strategies, and developing messaging frameworks that would effectively communicate GreenTech's enhanced environmental commitments to customers, investors, and industry partners. Our professional chemistry remained strong, built on mutual respect for each other's expertise and shared commitment to creating meaningful positive impact through corporate sustainability initiatives. The rhythm of collaboration that developed during the framework project created what felt like the ideal professional relationship. Linda would arrive at our offices early in the morning, usually carrying coffee for the entire project team and armed with new research that had emerged overnight from her monitoring of industry publications and academic journals. Our meetings began with strategic discussions about macro trends affecting the sustainable technology sector, evolved into detailed planning sessions about specific implementation strategies, and concluded with action items that moved us systematically toward our ambitious but achievable objectives. The quality of Linda's preparation consistently impressed everyone involved, from entry-level analysts to senior executives who had initially been skeptical about hiring external consultants for such a critical project. What particularly impressed me about Linda's consulting approach was her ability to balance visionary thinking with practical implementation considerations. Many sustainability experts excelled at identifying problems and articulating ideal solutions, but struggled to develop realistic pathways for achieving their objectives within existing organizational constraints. Linda possessed the rare ability to envision transformative change while simultaneously understanding the operational complexities, resource limitations, and stakeholder concerns that shaped what was actually possible within specific timeframes and budgets. Her recommendations consistently reflected sophisticated understanding of both environmental science and business strategy, creating frameworks that advanced ecological objectives through financially viable mechanisms that enhanced rather than undermined GreenTech's competitive position. The success of our collaboration extended beyond the immediate project deliverables to include substantial improvements in interdepartmental communication and strategic alignment throughout the organization. Linda's facilitation skills helped bridge gaps between our technical development teams and business operations groups, enabling more effective coordination between product innovation and market positioning initiatives. Her external perspective provided valuable insights into how our internal processes appeared to customers and industry partners, highlighting opportunities for improvement that would enhance both operational efficiency and brand reputation. The project became a catalyst for organizational development that extended far beyond its original scope, generating enthusiasm for systematic improvement that influenced everything from hiring practices to customer service protocols. As the Sustainability Framework project progressed through spring and into early summer, Linda's presence at GreenTech evolved from that of an external consultant to something approaching an internal strategic advisor. Her intimate familiarity with our operations, deep understanding of our competitive challenges, and proven ability to develop innovative solutions made her an increasingly valuable resource for senior management decisions that extended beyond the original consulting engagement. Robert Harrison began inviting Linda to participate in executive team meetings, seeking her perspective on merger and acquisition opportunities, potential partnerships with other technology companies, and strategic responses to regulatory changes affecting the sustainable energy sector. The expansion of Linda's role within GreenTech's strategic planning process coincided with growing recognition of her contributions from industry organizations and professional associations. She received an invitation to speak at the Pacific Northwest Sustainability Summit, where her presentation about innovative corporate environmental initiatives featured green tech as a case study for effective integration of ecological responsibility and business growth. The resulting publicity generated positive coverage in trade publications and strengthened our reputation as a thought leader in sustainable technology development. Linda's professional network brought new opportunities for partnerships, client relationships, and market expansion that directly benefited GreenTech's business development objectives. During this period, my own career continued on its upward trajectory, with the marketing campaigns I developed for our enhanced sustainability initiatives, earning recognition from industry associations, and generating substantial increases in customer engagement and sales conversion rates. The alignment between Linda's strategic framework and my marketing execution created a synergistic effect that amplified the impact of both our efforts, resulting in measurable improvements in brand awareness, customer acquisition, and revenue growth that exceeded all projected targets. My corner office remained a symbol of professional achievement. My team continued expanding to manage our growing portfolio of successful campaigns, and my compensation package reflected GreenTech's appreciation for the value I contributed to the organization's continued success. The balance between my professional achievements and personal life maintained its harmonious equilibrium throughout this period.
Of intensive collaboration with Linda, David's civil engineering projects were benefiting from the sustainability expertise that Linda shared during family gatherings, enabling him to incorporate innovative environmental solutions into his infrastructure designs that impressed both his supervisors and community stakeholders. Our relationship felt stronger than ever, built on mutual support for each other's professional ambitions and shared commitment to creating positive impact through our respective careers. The Craftsman house in Hawthorne District continued serving as our peaceful retreat from demanding work schedules, its small garden providing fresh vegetables and herbs that connected us to the environmental values we promoted through our professional activities. Family gatherings at Patricia and Frank's house during this period felt celebratory and harmonious, with Linda's professional success reflecting positively on Patricia's judgment about character and potential. Patricia took obvious pride in Linda's growing reputation within the sustainability consulting field, frequently sharing updates about speaking engagements, client achievements, and industry recognition that validated her assessment of Linda's capabilities. The garden tours that Patricia led for visitors increasingly featured collaborative projects that she and Linda had designed together, seasonal plantings and innovative growing techniques that demonstrated their shared commitment to environmental stewardship and aesthetic beauty. The dynamic between Linda and me during family gatherings remained collegial and mutually supportive, characterized by easy conversation about our respective projects and genuine interest in each other's professional development. We would often find ourselves engaged in detailed discussions about industry trends, sharing insights about emerging opportunities and challenges that could affect both our organizations. Linda's questions about my marketing strategies reflected sophisticated understanding of digital communication techniques and customer psychology, while her descriptions of client work provided valuable perspective on how other companies were approaching sustainability initiatives and stakeholder engagement. What I appreciated most about Linda's presence in our family circle was her ability to bridge the generational and ideological gaps that sometimes created tension during holiday celebrations and special occasions. Patricia's environmental concerns, which sometimes felt abstract or impractical to family members focused on immediate responsibilities and financial pressures, gained credibility and relevance through Linda's professional expertise and real-world examples of successful corporate sustainability initiatives. Frank's skepticism about environmental regulations and their economic impact softened when Linda explained how thoughtful sustainability strategies could actually enhance profitability and competitive advantage rather than imposing costly burdens on business operations. The professional relationship between Linda and me deepened during summer as we collaborated on developing comprehensive communication strategies for GreenTech's enhanced sustainability framework. The project required intensive coordination between strategic planning and marketing execution, demanding countless hours of joint meetings, collaborative document development, and synchronized implementation across multiple departmental responsibilities. Linda's consulting expertise complemented my marketing knowledge in ways that generated innovative solutions neither of us could have developed independently, creating value for GreenTech that justified the significant investment in external consulting services and internal resource allocation. Our collaborative process during this intensive project phase revealed Linda's remarkable ability to synthesize complex information from diverse sources and translate strategic concepts into actionable plans that could be understood and implemented by team members with varying levels of expertise and experience. She possessed the rare combination of analytical rigor and creative problem solving that enabled her to identify non-obvious connections between seemingly unrelated challenges and develop comprehensive solutions that addressed multiple objectives simultaneously. Her facilitation skills helped our diverse project team maintain focus and momentum even when confronting difficult decisions about resource allocation, timeline adjustments, and scope modifications that inevitably arose during complex organizational change initiatives. The marketing campaigns that emerged from our collaboration represented some of the most sophisticated and effective work of my career, combining authentic environmental messaging with compelling business value propositions that resonated with both existing customers and new market segments. Linda's strategic framework provided the foundation for communication strategies that positioned GreenTech as an industry leader in sustainable innovation while maintaining the commercial appeal necessary for continued growth and profitability. The campaigns generated unprecedented levels of customer engagement, media coverage, and industry recognition that validated our integrated approach to environmental responsibility and business excellence. As August approached, bringing with it the conclusion of Linda's initial consulting engagement, Robert Harrison announced that GreenTech would be creating a new executive position to oversee the implementation and ongoing development of our sustainability initiatives. The Chief Growth Officer role would combine strategic planning responsibilities with operational oversight, requiring someone with both the vision to guide long-term environmental objectives and the practical expertise to ensure successful execution of complex organizational change initiatives. The position represented a significant expansion of GreenTech's executive team, reflecting the company's commitment to sustainability as a core business strategy rather than a peripheral corporate responsibility initiative. The announcement of the Chief Growth Officer position generated considerable excitement throughout GreenTech, with many employees recognizing it as evidence of the company's commitment to the values and objectives that had originally attracted them to our organization. The role promised to influence every aspect of our operations, from product development and manufacturing processes to customer service and community engagement, creating opportunities for meaningful environmental impact that extended far beyond traditional corporate sustainability programs. The salary range and benefits package reflected the strategic importance of the position, with compensation comparable to other C-suite executives and authority to make decisions that would shape GreenTech's future direction for years to come. The search process for the Chief Growth Officer position was officially described as comprehensive and merit-based, designed to identify the candidate best qualified to lead GreenTech's ambitious sustainability initiatives, regardless of their background or previous relationship to the organization. Robert Harrison emphasized that the selection would be based purely on demonstrated expertise, strategic vision, and ability to execute complex organizational change initiatives within the specific constraints and opportunities that characterized our industry and competitive environment. The timeline for the search process was accelerated due to the urgency of implementing the sustainability framework before our competitors could develop similar initiatives that might erode our first-mover advantage in the market. During the weeks following the position announcement, I found myself increasingly convinced that the Chief Growth Officer role represented the logical next step in my own career development. My successful leadership of the marketing initiatives that had supported Linda's strategic framework demonstrated exactly the kind of integrated thinking and execution capability that the position required. My intimate knowledge of GreenTech's operations, proven track record of delivering measurable results, and established relationships with key stakeholders throughout the organization provided substantial advantages over external candidates who would need months to develop comparable understanding of our corporate culture and strategic priorities. The application process for the Chief Growth Officer position required extensive documentation of relevant experience, strategic vision for the role, and detailed proposals for how sustainability initiatives could be integrated into GreenTech's existing operations without disrupting the efficiency and profitability that enabled our continued growth. I invested considerable time and energy in developing a comprehensive application that showcased my marketing expertise, demonstrated understanding of environmental technologies, and outlined innovative approaches to stakeholder engagement that would enhance both our ecological impact and our competitive advantage. The proposal drew upon insights gained through my collaboration with Linda while advancing original ideas about market positioning and customer communication that reflected my unique perspective as someone who understood both the external perception and internal reality of GreenTech's operations. My confidence in my qualifications for the Chief Growth Officer position was reinforced by positive feedback from colleagues and industry contacts who recognized the alignment between my demonstrated capabilities and the strategic requirements of the role. Marcus Chen from Business Development noted that my successful integration of environmental messaging into our marketing campaigns had contributed directly to the revenue growth that enabled GreenTech to invest in expanded sustainability initiatives. Jennifer Walsh from Human Resources commented that my collaborative leadership style and ability to build consensus among diverse stakeholder groups made me an ideal candidate for a position that would require coordination across all departments and organizational levels. The interview process for the Chief Growth Officer position was intensive and thorough, involving multiple rounds of meetings with senior executives, presentations to the board of directors, and detailed discussions about strategic vision and implementation approaches. Each stage of the process reinforced my conviction that my qualifications and experience aligned perfectly with GreenTech's needs and objectives. The questions focused on exactly the areas where my expertise was strongest, from digital marketing strategy and customer engagement to environmental messaging and stakeholder communication. My responses drew upon years of successful campaign development and intimate knowledge of GreenTech's organizational culture, competitive challenges, and growth opportunities. The final stage of the interview process required candidates to present comprehensive strategic plans for the Chief Growth Officer role, including specific initiatives for the first 90 days, detailed budgets for the first year, and long-term vision for integrating sustainability into all aspects of GreenTech's operations. My presentation synthesized insights from the marketing campaigns I had developed, the collaborative work I had completed with Linda's consulting team, and original research about emerging trends in sustainable technology and corporate environmental responsibility. The proposal outlined ambitious but achievable objectives for enhancing GreenTech's ecological impact while strengthening our market position and financial performance. As September arrived, bringing with it the promised announcement of GreenTech's new Chief Growth Officer, I felt confident that my qualifications, experience, and strategic vision had positioned me as the strongest candidate for this career-defining opportunity. The role represented everything I had worked toward throughout my professional development, combining meaningful environmental impact with strategic business responsibility in ways that would enable me to contribute to positive change while advancing my own career objectives. My corner office overlooked the Willamette River, where salmon were beginning their annual migration upstream, a natural cycle of renewal and growth that seemed to mirror the professional transformation I was about to experience. The announcement was scheduled for a company-wide meeting on a crisp Friday morning in September, with Robert Harrison personally delivering the news to all employees gathered in GreenTech's main conference facility. The atmosphere was expectant and celebratory, with colleagues offering congratulations and expressing excitement about working with whoever would be selected to lead our sustainability initiatives into the future. David had planned a celebration dinner at our favorite restaurant in the Pearl District, confident that the evening would mark the beginning of a new chapter in both my career and our shared commitment to environmental responsibility through professional achievement. Standing in that conference room, surrounded by colleagues who had become friends and teammates who had supported my professional development throughout my tenure at GreenTech, I felt the deep satisfaction that comes from aligning personal values with professional opportunities in ways that create meaningful impact for both individual fulfillment and organizational success. The Chief Growth Officer position would enable me to continue the work I was passionate about while expanding my influence and responsibility in ways that would benefit GreenTech, our customers, and the broader environmental movement that motivated both my personal choices and professional commitments. Part 3. The foundation revealed. Robert Harrison stepped up to the podium with the measured confidence that had characterized his leadership of GreenTech Solutions for the past 8 years. The conference room fell silent, as nearly 200 employees turned their attention toward the announcement that would reshape our organizational structure and define our strategic direction for years to come. I stood near the back of the room with my marketing team, feeling the nervous energy that accompanies significant career moments, the anticipation that builds when personal ambition aligns with organizational opportunity in ways that promise mutual benefit. The late morning sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows cast long shadows across the assembled crowd, creating an almost ceremonial atmosphere for what everyone understood would be a pivotal moment in GreenTech's evolution. The introduction that Robert provided covered familiar territory about GreenTech's commitment to sustainable technology and our industry-leading approach to environmental responsibility. But his tone carried an unusual formality that suggested more substantial changes than a simple personnel announcement. He described the Chief Growth Officer position as representing a fundamental shift in how we would integrate sustainability into every aspect of our business operations, from product development and manufacturing processes to customer engagement and community partnerships. The role would carry executive authority equal to other C-suite positions, with reporting relationships that provided direct access to board of directors and strategic decision-making processes that would influence GreenTech's long-term direction. As Robert continued his remarks, describing the comprehensive search process and the exceptional qualifications required for such a critical leadership position, I found myself mentally reviewing the presentations and interviews that had consumed my attention for the past month. Every interaction with the selection committee had reinforced my confidence that my combination of marketing expertise, environmental knowledge, and organizational understanding positioned me as the ideal candidate for this opportunity. The strategic plan I had developed for the role addressed exactly the challenges that Robert was now describing, offering innovative solutions that would advance both our sustainability objectives and our competitive advantage in rapidly evolving markets. The moment of announcement arrived with characteristic directness from Robert, who had never believed in dramatic presentations when clear communication would suffice. He paused briefly, allowing the anticipation to build throughout the room, then spoke the words that shattered my professional world and revealed the complex web of relationships and influences that had been operating beneath the surface of our seemingly straightforward corporate environment. Linda Thompson would be joining GreenTech Solutions as our new Chief Growth Officer, bringing her extensive experience in sustainability consulting and organizational development to lead our expanded environmental initiatives and strategic growth objectives. The sound that emerged from the assembled employees was a mixture of polite applause and surprised murmurs as people processed the implications of hiring an external candidate for such a significant internal promotion opportunity. I felt the blood drain from my face as the reality of the announcement settled over me like a suffocating blanket, making it difficult to breathe normally or maintain the professional composure that the situation demanded. Around me, colleagues began turning to offer congratulations that they assumed I would be receiving, their confused expressions reflecting their own surprise at the unexpected outcome of what had seemed like a foregone conclusion. Linda stepped forward from where she had been standing near the front of the room, positioned almost as if she had known exactly when her moment would arrive. She wore a tailored navy blue suit that projected executive authority, her graying blonde hair styled more professionally than I had ever seen during family gatherings. Her entire demeanor transformed from Patricia's gardening companion to a confident corporate leader prepared to assume significant organizational responsibility. The transformation was so complete that she seemed like an entirely different person, someone whose casual participation in family barbecues and herb garden planning sessions had concealed sophisticated strategic thinking and ambitious professional objectives. The brief remarks that Linda offered to the assembled employees revealed communication skills and strategic vision that went far beyond anything she had displayed during our collaborative work on the Sustainability Framework project. She spoke confidently about GreenTech's potential for industry leadership, outlined preliminary ideas for expanding our environmental impact while maintaining profitable growth, and demonstrated intimate knowledge of our competitive challenges and market opportunities that suggested months of preparation rather than the spontaneous insights of a newly appointed executive. Her presentation was polished, substantive, and perfectly calibrated to address the concerns and expectations of various stakeholder groups represented in the audience. As Linda continued her introductory remarks, describing her vision for integrating sustainability into every aspect of GreenTech's operations, I began recognizing elements of the strategic framework that we had developed together during her consulting engagement. The language she used, the priorities she emphasized, and the implementation timeline she proposed all reflected concepts and approaches that had emerged from our collaborative work, but presented now as her independent strategic thinking, rather than the product of team effort and joint development. The realization that my own contributions to the sustainability framework were being repurposed as Linda's personal platform for executive leadership added a layer of professional betrayal to the personal disappointment of not receiving the promotion. The questions that followed Linda's presentation revealed the depth of preparation and strategic thinking that had preceded this announcement. Her responses demonstrated detailed understanding of GreenTech's financial structure, operational constraints, and competitive positioning that could only have been acquired through extensive research and insider access to information that was not typically available to external consultants. She discussed specific client relationships, internal process improvements, and strategic partnerships with the confidence of someone who had been planning for this opportunity over an extended period, rather than responding to a recently announced job opening. Marcus Chen approached me during the informal reception that followed the announcement, his expression reflecting the confusion and disappointment that I was struggling to conceal behind professional courtesy. He had expected to be congratulating me on a well-deserved promotion, and the unexpected outcome had clearly caught him off guard as much as it had surprised me. His quiet question about whether I had received any advance notice of the decision confirmed that the selection of Linda had not been the obvious choice that her confident presentation suggested. The selection committee had apparently kept their deliberations completely confidential, even from senior staff who would be working closely with the new Chief Growth Officer. Jennifer Walsh from Human Resources made a point of speaking with me privately after the announcement, offering reassurance that my qualifications and contributions to GreenTech remained highly valued despite the outcome of this particular selection process. Her comments suggested that the decision had been influenced by factors beyond the standard criteria of experience, qualifications, and strategic vision that typically determined executive appointments. The delicate way she phrased her observations indicated that political considerations and external relationships had played a more significant role in the selection process than the merit-based evaluation that had been officially described to candidates and staff. The remainder of the day passed in a blur of forced congratulations, disappointed conversations with colleagues who had expected a different outcome, and increasing awareness that my understanding of corporate politics and organizational decision-making had been naive and incomplete. The confidence I had felt about my qualifications, and the certainty I had maintained about the logical outcome of a merit-based selection process, now seemed like evidence of professional immaturity, rather than justified optimism. The realization that factors beyond demonstrated competence and strategic vision could determine career advancement challenged fundamental assumptions about how successful organizations operated and how professional achievement was recognized and rewarded. David's reaction to the news reflected his own surprise and disappointment on my behalf, but also revealed a dimension of family politics that I had not previously understood or appreciated. His initial response was sympathetic and supportive, acknowledging the unfairness of the situation and offering reassurance about my qualifications and future opportunities. However, as our conversation continued, it became apparent that he was not entirely surprised by Linda's selection, and that family discussions I had not been privy to had prepared him for the possibility that her relationship with GreenTech might evolve in unexpected directions. The revelation that David had been aware of Linda's interest in executive opportunities at GreenTech, and that family conversations had included speculation about her potential fit for the Chief Growth Officer position, introduced an element of betrayal that extended beyond professional disappointment into personal relationships and family loyalty. The knowledge that my husband had not shared information that might have helped me understand the competitive landscape for the position I was pursuing felt like a violation of the partnership and mutual support that I had believed characterized our marriage. The realization that family relationships had been influencing my professional prospects without my knowledge or consent challenged my understanding of the boundaries between personal and professional spheres. Patricia's response to the announcement, delivered during a family dinner that weekend, revealed the depth of her involvement in orchestrating Linda's career advancement, and her satisfaction with the outcome of strategic planning that had apparently been developing for months without my awareness. Her pride in Linda's achievement was evident and unqualified, expressed through detailed descriptions of Linda's qualifications and strategic vision that demonstrated intimate knowledge of her application and interview process. The enthusiasm with which Patricia described Linda's potential impact on GreenTech's environmental initiatives suggested personal investment in the outcome that went far beyond casual interest in a friend's career development. The conversation during that family dinner also revealed the extent to which my own professional prospects had been discussed and evaluated within family circles, with judgments and predictions that I had not been invited to participate in or respond to. Patricia's comments about the Chief Growth Officer position reflected detailed understanding of the role's requirements and strategic importance, along with assessments of various candidates' qualifications that included observations about my own strengths and limitations that felt both accurate and uncomfortably personal. The realization that my career had been a subject of family analysis and speculation without my knowledge created a sense of exposure and vulnerability that was difficult to process or address directly. Frank's perspective on the situation, shared privately, while Patricia and Linda were touring the greenhouse to examine new seedling varieties, provided additional insight into the family dynamics that had influenced recent events. His comments suggested that Patricia's advocacy for Linda had been persistent and strategic, involving detailed research into GreenTech's organizational structure and decision-making processes that went far beyond casual interest in employment opportunities. The methodical approach that Patricia had taken to supporting Linda's career advancement reflected the same systematic thinking and resource mobilization that had characterized her most successful gardening projects and community volunteer initiatives. The conversation with Frank also revealed his own discomfort with the level of family involvement in professional matters that traditionally remain separate from personal relationships. His observations about Patricia's increasing focus on Linda's career development and her detailed knowledge of corporate strategies and organizational politics suggested concerns about appropriate boundaries and the potential for family relationships to create conflicts of interest or ethical complications. The careful way he expressed these concerns indicated awareness that direct confrontation would be counterproductive, while acknowledging that the current situation
raised questions about fairness and transparency that deserved consideration. As the weeks following Linda's appointment progressed, the changes in organizational dynamics became increasingly apparent and professionally challenging. Linda's transition into the Chief Growth Officer role was remarkably smooth, suggesting preparation and relationship building that had occurred well before the official announcement. Her interactions with senior executives, department heads, and key stakeholders reflected established rapport and mutual understanding that typically required months to develop, indicating that her integration into GreenTech's leadership team had been facilitated through channels and processes that were not visible to most employees. The strategic initiatives that Linda implemented during her first month as Chief Growth Officer drew heavily upon the sustainability framework that we had developed together during her consulting engagement, but with modifications and expansions that positioned her as the primary architect of GreenTech's environmental strategy. The collaborative nature of our previous work was minimized in favor of presentations that emphasized Linda's individual expertise and strategic vision, creating a narrative of organizational transformation driven by her unique qualifications and innovative thinking rather than team effort and collective development. My own role within the new organizational structure became increasingly marginalized as Linda established direct relationships with key stakeholders and decision-makers who had previously relied on my marketing expertise and strategic input. The communication strategies that I had developed for promoting GreenTech sustainability initiatives were reassigned to Linda's direct oversight, with my involvement limited to tactical implementation rather than strategic planning or creative development. The systematic reduction of my responsibilities and authority represented a professional demotion disguised as organizational restructuring, limiting my influence and visibility within the company I had helped build into an industry leader. The pattern of marginalization extended beyond formal organizational changes to include subtle but persistent undermining of my credibility and expertise in meetings, presentations, and strategic planning sessions. Linda's comments about my work often included qualified praise that highlighted limitations or suggested alternative approaches that would have produced superior results. Her questions about marketing strategies and campaign development carried implicit criticism about methodology, target audience selection, or measurement criteria that positioned her as the more sophisticated strategic thinker despite her lack of direct experience in digital marketing or brand development. The corporate culture that had previously valued collaborative problem-solving and collective achievement gradually shifted toward a more hierarchical structure that emphasized individual expertise and executive authority. Linda's leadership style encouraged direct reporting relationships that bypassed traditional departmental coordination, creating information silos and reducing the cross-functional collaboration that had previously been a source of innovation and efficiency. The changes were implemented gradually and presented as improvements to organizational effectiveness, but their cumulative impact was to concentrate decision-making authority while reducing the influence and autonomy of mid-level managers and department heads. Emma Rodriguez, my closest friend and ally within GreenTech's marketing department, began documenting the systematic changes that were affecting not only my position but the broader organizational culture that had attracted talented professionals to join and remain with the company.
Her observations about meeting dynamics, decision-making processes, and resource allocation patterns revealed a comprehensive transformation that extended far beyond the appointment of a new executive to fundamental changes in how the organization operated and valued different types of contributions. The documentation she maintained became a record of organizational change that might prove valuable for understanding and addressing the challenges that were emerging from Linda's leadership approach. The realization that my professional prospects at GreenTech were being systematically undermined through subtle but persistent marginalization created a crisis of confidence that extended beyond immediate career concerns to fundamental questions about professional judgment, organizational loyalty, and personal resilience. The company that had provided opportunities for meaningful achievement and creative fulfillment was becoming an environment where my contributions were devalued and my potential for advancement was deliberately constrained. The transformation challenged everything I had believed about merit-based advancement and fair competition in professional environments. Part 4. The Divergent Forces. The months following Linda's appointment as Chief Growth Officer transformed GreenTech Solutions from the collaborative, innovation-driven company I had devoted 6 years of my career to building into something unrecognizable and increasingly hostile to the values and working relationships that had originally attracted me to the organization. The systematic dismantling of my professional authority accelerated through what Linda termed organizational optimization, a series of restructuring initiatives that eliminated redundancies, streamlined reporting relationships, and aligned departmental objectives with the company's enhanced focus on sustainable growth and environmental impact. Each change was presented as a logical improvement to operational efficiency, but their cumulative effect was to isolate me from strategic decision-making while transferring my most successful projects and valuable client relationships to Linda's direct oversight. The marketing campaigns that had established my reputation within the industry and generated millions of dollars in revenue for GreenTech were gradually reassigned to a new integrated communications team that reported directly to Linda rather than through traditional departmental channels. The rationale provided for this restructuring emphasized the need for consistency between strategic messaging and tactical implementation, ensuring that all external communications reflected the comprehensive sustainability framework that Linda had developed for guiding GreenTech's market positioning and stakeholder engagement activities. My role in these campaigns was reduced to providing technical support for digital platform management and data analysis, while creative development and strategic planning responsibilities were transferred to consultants and contractors who lacked institutional knowledge but possessed Linda's confidence and approval. The office reassignment that accompanied these organizational changes represented perhaps the most visible symbol of my declining status within GreenTech's hierarchy. Linda's explanation for relocating me from my corner office on the 15th floor to a smaller workspace in the basement level focused on practical considerations about proximity to the new integrated communications team and improved access to data analysis resources that would enhance my productivity and effectiveness. The new office, while technically adequate for my reduced responsibilities, lacked windows, natural light, and the symbolic importance that had reflected my previous position as a senior marketing director with substantial authority and organizational influence. The psychological impact of working in an underground office space proved more challenging than I had anticipated, creating a sense of professional burial that affected both my daily mood and long-term motivation in ways that extended far beyond mere inconvenience or wounded pride. The absence of natural light disrupted my circadian rhythms, making it difficult to maintain the energy and focus that had characterized my previous work performance. The physical separation from other senior staff reduced opportunities for informal collaboration and relationship maintenance that had previously been sources of both professional development and personal satisfaction. The symbolic message conveyed by the relocation was unmistakable to colleagues throughout the organization, marking my transition from rising executive to marginalized employee whose influence and prospects had been systematically diminished. Linda's management style during this period reflected sophisticated understanding of corporate politics and organizational psychology, implementing changes that achieved her objectives while maintaining plausible deniability about discriminatory intent or personal vendetta. Her interactions with me remained professionally courteous, even occasionally supportive, acknowledging my technical expertise while expressing concern about my apparent difficulty adapting to the new organizational structure and strategic priorities. Her feedback during performance reviews emphasized areas for improvement that were subtly impossible to address fully, creating documentation of substandard performance that could justify further marginalization or eventual termination while appearing to offer constructive guidance for professional development. The meetings where Linda discussed my work performance with other senior executives, which I learned about through Emma Rodriguez's careful monitoring of organizational communications, revealed a pattern of damaging characterizations disguised as professional concern. Linda would express appreciation for my historical contributions to GreenTech while noting recent challenges with collaboration, strategic thinking, and adaptation to changing market conditions that suggested declining relevance and effectiveness. Her comments positioned my reduced responsibilities as temporary measures designed to provide support and development opportunities rather than punitive actions, creating a narrative of organizational compassion that obscured the systematic nature of my professional destruction. David's response to my increasingly difficult situation at work reflected the complex web of family relationships and competing loyalties that had become apparent since Linda's appointment as Chief Growth Officer. His initial support and sympathy gradually gave way to suggestions that I might be overreacting to normal organizational changes, that my perception of deliberate marginalization might reflect difficulty accepting reduced prominence rather than objective assessment of discriminatory treatment. His conversations with his mother and Linda during family gatherings apparently reinforced their perspective that my professional challenges resulted from inadequate flexibility and strategic thinking rather than systematic undermining by someone with personal and family connections that created unfair advantages. The erosion of David's support for my professional concerns created additional strain on our marriage that extended beyond career disappointment to fundamental questions about loyalty, partnership, and mutual advocacy in challenging circumstances. His increasing alignment with his family's perspective on my situation felt like abandonment during a period when I needed his understanding and support most desperately. The realization that he was discussing my professional problems with Linda and Patricia, potentially providing them with insights about my emotional state and strategic thinking that could be used to further undermine my position, introduced elements of betrayal and violated trust that damaged our relationship in ways that extended far beyond the immediate workplace crisis. Emma Rodriguez emerged as my most reliable ally during this period, using her position within the marketing department to document the systematic changes that were affecting not only my career but the broader organizational culture that had previously characterized GreenTech as an innovative and supportive workplace. Her careful observation of meeting dynamics, resource allocation decisions, and communication patterns revealed a comprehensive transformation designed to consolidate power while eliminating potential sources of opposition or alternative perspectives. The evidence she gathered painted a picture of deliberate organizational manipulation that extended far beyond normal executive transition activities to something approaching a coordinated campaign to reshape GreenTech according to Linda's vision and preferences. The documentation that Emma compiled became increasingly valuable as a record of discriminatory practices and possible legal violations that might provide grounds for challenging my treatment through human resources procedures or external regulatory agencies. Her notes included specific examples of projects reassigned without justification, meetings scheduled deliberately to exclude my participation, and performance evaluations that contradicted objective measures of productivity and effectiveness. The systematic nature of these changes suggested strategic planning and coordinated implementation that went beyond spontaneous management decisions to constitute a pattern of behavior that might violate employment law and corporate governance standards. Marcus Chen's perspective on the organizational changes provided additional confirmation that my experience was part of a broader transformation that was affecting multiple departments and long-term employees who had contributed significantly to GreenTech's previous success. His observations about decision-making processes, strategic planning sessions, and resource allocation priorities revealed Linda's systematic approach to eliminating potential sources of opposition while rewarding employees who demonstrated loyalty to her leadership and strategic vision. The changes were implemented with sufficient subtlety to avoid obvious legal violations while achieving the practical objective of consolidating authority and eliminating dissenting voices. The impact of these organizational changes on GreenTech's performance and employee morale became increasingly apparent as Linda's first year as Chief Growth Officer progressed, with turnover rates increasing significantly among experienced professionals who had previously been committed to long-term careers with the company. The collaborative culture that had fostered innovation and creative problem-solving was replaced by a more hierarchical structure that emphasized compliance with executive directives rather than independent thinking or cross-departmental coordination. The quality of work suffered as institutional knowledge was lost through resignations and early retirements, while new employees lacked the experience and organizational understanding necessary to maintain previous standards of excellence and client satisfaction. The financial performance that had justified Linda's appointment and provided credibility for her strategic initiatives began showing signs of decline as the organizational changes disrupted established relationships with key clients and reduced the effectiveness of marketing campaigns that had previously generated substantial revenue growth. The integrated communications approach that had replaced my departmental marketing strategies proved less effective at generating customer engagement and sales conversion, while the increased costs associated with external consultants and contractors reduced profit margins without producing corresponding improvements in results or competitive advantage. Linda's response to these performance challenges involved intensifying the organizational restructuring efforts and implementing additional layers of oversight and control that further reduced departmental autonomy and employee morale. Her explanations for declining metrics focused on external market conditions and competitive pressures rather than acknowledging the connection between internal organizational changes and reduced effectiveness. The strategic planning sessions she conducted with senior executives emphasized the need for enhanced discipline and alignment with corporate objectives, positioning employee concerns about organizational culture and working conditions as obstacles to necessary transformation rather than legitimate feedback about problematic management practices. The legal consultation that I pursued during this period, recommended by Emma Rodriguez and supported through her careful documentation of discriminatory practices, revealed the complexity of challenging workplace harassment and professional sabotage within the context of family relationships and corporate politics. The employment attorney I met with explained that while my treatment appeared to violate principles of fair employment and equal opportunity, proving discriminatory intent would require demonstrating that the organizational changes were motivated by personal animus rather than legitimate business objectives. The relationship between Linda and my mother-in-law created additional complications for legal action, as it suggested potential conflicts of interest while providing alternative explanations for her knowledge of internal company information and strategic planning processes. The attorney's assessment of my situation emphasized the importance of continuing to document specific instances of discriminatory treatment while maintaining professional performance standards that would strengthen any eventual legal challenge. Her advice included recommendations for preserving evidence of successful work performance, maintaining written records of all interactions with Linda and other executives, and avoiding confrontational behavior that might be characterized as insubordination or failure to adapt to organizational change. The legal strategy she outlined required patience and systematic preparation rather than immediate action, as premature legal challenges might alert Linda to my intentions while providing insufficient evidence to support successful litigation. The psychological toll of maintaining professional composure while systematically documenting discriminatory treatment and planning legal action created additional stress that affected every aspect of my life, from work performance and family relationships to physical health and emotional well-being. The constant vigilance required to protect myself from further professional sabotage while gathering evidence for potential legal action was exhausting and demoralizing, transforming what had previously been fulfilling work into a daily struggle for survival and dignity. The uncertainty about whether legal action would ultimately be successful or advisable added another layer of anxiety to an already overwhelming situation. The conversation with Jennifer Walsh from Human Resources that I finally requested after months of deteriorating conditions revealed the limitations of internal corporate procedures for addressing complex situations involving executive misconduct and potential conflicts of interest. Jennifer's response to my concerns was professionally sympathetic but practically limited, as the organizational changes affecting my position had been implemented through proper channels and documented with apparently legitimate business justifications. Her explanation of human resources procedures emphasized the need for clear evidence of policy violations rather than subjective perceptions of unfair treatment, while acknowledging that executive-level personnel decisions often involve strategic considerations that might not be apparent to affected employees. The human resources investigation that followed my formal complaint was conducted with appropriate procedural correctness but limited scope, focusing on specific policy violations rather than examining the broader pattern of discriminatory treatment that had characterized my experience over the previous year. The interviews conducted with Linda and other executives produced predictable responses that emphasized business justifications for organizational changes while expressing concern about my apparent difficulty adapting to new strategic priorities and management approaches. The final report concluded that while my concerns were understandable, the evidence did not support findings of discriminatory treatment or violations of company policy that would warrant corrective action or executive discipline. The failure of internal procedures to address my situation effectively left me with increasingly limited options for protecting my career and professional reputation while remaining employed at GreenTech. The legal consultation had revealed the challenges and uncertainties associated with external litigation, while the human resources investigation had demonstrated the ineffectiveness of internal complaint procedures for addressing sophisticated forms of workplace harassment and professional sabotage. The systematic nature of Linda's campaign to marginalize my position and undermine my credibility appeared designed to avoid obvious legal violations while achieving the practical objective of forcing my resignation or creating justification for termination. The realization that my professional future at GreenTech had been effectively eliminated through a coordinated campaign of marginalization and sabotage created a crisis that extended far beyond immediate career concerns to fundamental questions about justice, fairness, and the possibility of meaningful recourse for sophisticated forms of workplace discrimination. The company that had provided opportunities for professional growth and creative fulfillment had become an environment where my continued employment was neither sustainable nor psychologically healthy. The systematic destruction of my career by someone who had gained access to my workplace through family relationships represented a profound violation of trust and professional ethics that challenged my understanding of corporate governance and employment protection. The decision to resign from GreenTech Solutions, reached after extensive consultation with legal counsel and careful consideration of alternative strategies for addressing my situation, represented both a personal defeat and a strategic choice designed to preserve my professional reputation and create opportunities for future career development in environments not contaminated by Linda's influence and family complications. The resignation letter I prepared carefully documented my contributions to the company while expressing appreciation for previous opportunities and support, avoiding any language that might be characterized as accusatory or unprofessional while preserving my legal options for future action if additional evidence emerged or circumstances changed. The final weeks of my employment at GreenTech passed in a surreal atmosphere of professional courtesy and organizational efficiency, as if my systematic marginalization and forced departure represented normal personnel transitions rather than the culmination of a sophisticated campaign of workplace harassment and career destruction. Linda's response to my resignation was professionally appropriate and personally cordial, expressing regret about my decision while acknowledging my valuable contributions to the company's development and success. Her ability to maintain this facade of normalcy while completing the destruction of my career demonstrated the same strategic thinking and psychological manipulation that had characterized her entire approach to organizational transformation. Part 5. The catalyst event. 6 months after my resignation from GreenTech Solutions, I had managed to rebuild some semblance of professional stability through freelance consulting work and contract projects that utilized my digital marketing expertise without requiring the kind of organizational commitment that had proven so devastating at my former company. The work was sporadic and financially unpredictable, lacking the security and benefits that had characterized my previous corporate position. But it provided the psychological safety of knowing that my professional fate was no longer dependent on the whims and machinations of executives whose personal relationships and hidden agendas could destroy years of careful career development. The small home office I had established in our Craftsman house's former guest room became my refuge from the corporate politics and interpersonal betrayals that had defined my final year at GreenTech. David's support during this difficult transition period had been inconsistent and sometimes frustrating, reflecting his continued inability to fully grasp the sophisticated nature of the professional sabotage I had experienced or to recognize his own family's complicity in the systematic destruction of my career. His suggestions that I should consider the resignation as an opportunity for growth and exploration, while well-intentioned, demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of how deeply the experience had shaken my confidence in corporate systems and professional relationships. His occasional comments about Linda's continued success at GreenTech, delivered without apparent awareness of their hurtful impact, reinforced my growing sense that our marriage had been damaged in ways that might prove irreparable. The freelance work I was able to secure came primarily through professional networks and industry contacts who had observed my marketing campaigns and strategic thinking during my years at GreenTech, providing some validation that my professional reputation had survived the character assassination attempts that had characterized Linda's management approach. These clients appreciated my experience with sustainable technology marketing and environmental messaging, areas of expertise that remained relevant and valuable despite the personal and professional trauma associated with their development. The projects allowed me to maintain my skills and industry connections while gradually rebuilding the confidence and optimism that had been systematically undermined through months of workplace harassment. Emma Rodriguez remained my closest ally and most reliable source of information about the ongoing developments at GreenTech, where her continued employment provided insights into the long-term consequences of Linda's leadership approach and organizational transformation initiatives. Her reports about declining employee morale, increased turnover rates, and reduced client satisfaction painted a picture of an organization struggling to maintain the performance standards and innovative culture that had previously distinguished it within the sustainable technology sector. The systematic elimination of experienced professionals and collaborative working relationships had created operational challenges that were becoming increasingly difficult to conceal from clients, investors, and industry observers. The most significant revelation that Emma shared during one of our monthly coffee meetings at Blue Moon Cafe concerned a major client contract that GreenTech had lost due to communication failures and strategic missteps that could be traced directly to the organizational changes implemented under Linda's leadership. Pacific Solar, the renewable
energy company that had been one of our most important accounts and a showcase for the marketing strategies I had developed, had terminated their relationship with GreenTech after a series of campaign failures and missed deadlines that reflected the lack of institutional knowledge and collaborative coordination that had previously characterized our client service approach. The loss represented not only substantial revenue but damage to GreenTech's industry reputation that would affect future business development opportunities. Emma's detailed account of the Pacific Solar debacle revealed the extent to which Linda's restructuring efforts had disrupted the careful relationships and systematic processes that had enabled GreenTech to deliver exceptional results for complex client projects. The integrated communications team that had replaced my departmental marketing structure lacked the deep understanding of client needs, industry dynamics, and strategic objectives that had informed the successful campaigns of previous years. The external consultants and contractors who had been brought in to replace experienced internal staff struggled to coordinate effectively with other departments, creating communication gaps and strategic disconnects that resulted in campaigns that failed to meet client expectations or deliver promised results. The failure of the Pacific Solar campaign had broader implications beyond the immediate loss of revenue and client relationship, as it represented a test case for Linda's approach to organizational management and strategic coordination that had been closely observed by other clients and industry partners. The inability to maintain previous performance standards despite increased costs and enhanced organizational complexity called into question the fundamental assumptions underlying Linda's restructuring initiatives and raised concerns about GreenTech's continued viability as a reliable partner for complex sustainability projects. The reputation damage extended beyond specific client relationships to affect GreenTech's standing within the broader sustainable technology community, where word-of-mouth recommendations and professional networks played crucial roles in business development. Marcus Chen's perspective on these developments, shared during a discreet lunch meeting at a restaurant far from GreenTech's downtown offices, provided additional confirmation that Linda's leadership was creating systemic problems that extended far beyond the personal vendetta that had targeted my career. His observations about strategic planning processes, budget allocation decisions, and stakeholder management approaches revealed a pattern of misplaced priorities and inadequate understanding of business fundamentals that was affecting every aspect of GreenTech's operations. The emphasis on organizational control and executive authority had replaced the collaborative decision-making and distributed expertise that had previously enabled the company to respond effectively to complex client needs and rapidly changing market conditions. The information that Marcus shared about internal financial projections and performance metrics painted a disturbing picture of declining profitability and competitive position that contradicted the optimistic reports that Linda was providing to the board of directors and external stakeholders. The increased costs associated with consulting fees, contractor expenses, and executive compensation were not being offset by corresponding improvements in revenue generation or operational efficiency. The client retention rates and new business development metrics showed consistent decline over the months since Linda's appointment, suggesting that the organizational changes were having the opposite effect from their intended objectives of enhanced growth and market leadership. The most shocking revelation that Marcus provided concerned irregularities in expense reporting and budget allocation that suggested possible financial misconduct on Linda's part, including consulting fees paid to organizations with questionable credentials and professional relationships that appeared designed to benefit Linda's personal network rather than advance GreenTech's strategic objectives. The documentation he had been able to access through his business development responsibilities indicated systematic diversion of company resources to support initiatives and relationships that served Linda's agenda rather than GreenTech's legitimate business needs.
The pattern of financial irregularities suggested not only incompetent management but potentially fraudulent activity that could have serious legal and regulatory implications for the organization. The decision to document and report these financial irregularities required careful consideration of legal implications, ethical obligations, and potential personal consequences for Marcus, who could face retaliation or termination if his investigation became known to Linda or other executives who might be complicit in the questionable activities. The employment attorney I had consulted during my own difficulties at GreenTech provided guidance about whistleblower protections and reporting procedures that might offer some protection for Marcus while ensuring that regulatory authorities received accurate information about potential corporate misconduct. The legal framework for addressing these issues was complex and required coordination between multiple agencies with different jurisdictions and enforcement priorities. The evidence of financial misconduct provided new context for understanding Linda's systematic efforts to eliminate experienced employees who might have recognized irregularities or questioned unauthorized expenditures and strategic decisions that benefited her personal interests rather than GreenTech's legitimate business objectives. The marginalization and departure of long-term employees like myself had the additional benefit of reducing institutional knowledge and organizational oversight that might have detected or reported the financial irregularities that Marcus had discovered. The personnel changes that had been presented as strategic restructuring appeared to serve multiple purposes, consolidating executive authority while eliminating potential sources of accountability and oversight. Patricia's role in facilitating Linda's access to GreenTech and providing information about organizational structure and decision-making processes took on new significance in light of the financial irregularities and systematic misconduct that were becoming apparent through careful investigation of Linda's management practices. The family relationships that had initially seemed like harmless networking and mutual support appeared to be part of a more sophisticated strategy for corporate infiltration and resource extraction that had been planned and executed over an extended period. The garden parties and casual family gatherings had provided opportunities for intelligence gathering and relationship building that had enabled Linda to position herself for the executive appointment that had become the platform for systematic exploitation of corporate resources. The realization that my own family connections had been exploited as part of a deliberate strategy for corporate infiltration and financial misconduct created a profound sense of betrayal that extended beyond professional disappointment to fundamental questions about trust, loyalty, and the manipulation of personal relationships for criminal purposes. The discovery that Linda had used her friendship with Patricia not only to destroy my career but to gain access to corporate resources for unauthorized personal benefit transformed what had seemed like workplace politics into potential criminal activity that demanded legal action rather than simply personal resolution or professional adaptation. The evidence-gathering process that Marcus and I initiated required extreme discretion and careful coordination to avoid alerting Linda or other potentially complicit executives to our investigation while ensuring that all relevant documentation was preserved and properly cataloged for potential legal proceedings. The financial records, email communications, and contract documents that Marcus was able to access through his business development responsibilities painted a comprehensive picture of systematic misconduct that extended far beyond the personal vendetta that had targeted my career to include broader patterns of corporate fraud and regulatory violations that could result in serious criminal charges and civil penalties. David's reaction to the revelation about Linda's financial misconduct and the role of his family in facilitating corporate fraud reflected the complexity of his position as someone whose personal relationships were implicated in criminal activity while his marriage was being damaged by the consequences of that activity. His initial skepticism about the evidence gave way to reluctant acknowledgement as the documentation became increasingly comprehensive and undeniable. The realization that his mother had been manipulated or potentially complicit in criminal activity created emotional turmoil that paralleled my own struggle to understand how family relationships had been exploited for financial fraud and personal destruction. The legal consultation that we pursued together with the employment attorney who had previously advised me about workplace harassment revealed the scope and complexity of the criminal investigation that would be necessary to address Linda's misconduct while protecting the interests of legitimate stakeholders and employees who had been victimized by her fraudulent activities. The evidence suggested violations of multiple federal and state statutes governing corporate fraud, embezzlement, and fiduciary responsibility that would require coordination between various law enforcement agencies and regulatory authorities with different investigative capabilities and enforcement priorities. The decision to report Linda's criminal activity to appropriate authorities represented a significant escalation in our response to the personal and professional damage she had caused, transforming what had begun as workplace harassment into a comprehensive legal challenge that would affect not only Linda and GreenTech but also the family relationships and community connections that had been exploited to facilitate her criminal enterprise. The whistleblower complaint that Marcus filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission triggered a formal investigation that would examine every aspect of GreenTech's financial management and corporate governance during Linda's tenure as Chief Growth Officer. The FBI investigation that resulted from the 6E referral expanded the scope of inquiry to include potential violations of federal fraud statutes, money laundering regulations, and organized crime provisions that reflected the sophisticated and systematic nature of Linda's criminal activities. The federal agents who interviewed me about my experiences at GreenTech were particularly interested in the timeline of organizational changes, the methods used to eliminate oversight and accountability, and the role of family relationships in facilitating access to corporate resources and sensitive information. The investigation revealed that similar patterns of corporate infiltration and resource extraction had characterized Linda's previous employment relationships, suggesting a career built on systematic exploitation of professional relationships and organizational vulnerabilities. Patricia's interview with federal investigators revealed the extent to which she had been manipulated by Linda's sophisticated approach to relationship building and information gathering, providing insights about family dynamics, financial pressures, and personal vulnerabilities that had been exploited to gain access to information about GreenTech's operations and strategic planning processes. The revelation that Patricia had been as much a victim as an enabler of Linda's criminal activities provided some relief from the guilt and anger that had been complicating our family relationships, while also demonstrating the sophisticated psychological manipulation that had characterized Linda's entire approach to corporate infiltration. The criminal charges that were eventually filed against Linda included multiple counts of corporate fraud, embezzlement, wire fraud, and conspiracy that reflected the breadth and sophistication of her criminal enterprise. The total amount of corporate resources that had been diverted for personal benefit exceeded $2 million over the 18-month period of her employment at GreenTech, representing one of the largest cases of executive fraud in Oregon's corporate history. The investigation revealed connections to similar criminal activities at her previous employers, establishing a pattern of behavior that had been refined and expanded over years of successful exploitation of professional relationships and organizational vulnerabilities. The plea agreement that Linda eventually accepted included full restitution to GreenTech and its defrauded stakeholders, substantial financial penalties, and a prison sentence that reflected the serious nature of her crimes and their impact on legitimate businesses and individual victims. The cooperation agreement she negotiated with federal prosecutors required detailed disclosure of her methods for corporate infiltration and resource extraction, providing valuable intelligence for preventing similar crimes while also revealing the full extent of her manipulation of family relationships and personal connections to facilitate criminal activity. The civil lawsuit that GreenTech filed against Linda and her various shell companies and accomplices sought recovery of all diverted corporate resources plus additional damages for the harm to business reputation and competitive position that had resulted from her criminal activities. The litigation revealed additional evidence of systematic misconduct that had not been covered in the criminal proceedings, including manipulation of client relationships, misappropriation of intellectual property, and deliberate sabotage of legitimate business operations to conceal her fraudulent activities. The restoration of my professional reputation and the vindication of my concerns about workplace harassment and systematic discrimination provided some satisfaction and closure for the personal and professional trauma I had experienced during Linda's reign of terror at GreenTech. The criminal conviction and civil judgments against Linda validated my perceptions of her misconduct while demonstrating that sophisticated forms of workplace harassment and corporate fraud could be successfully challenged through appropriate legal channels and persistent investigation of suspicious patterns and relationships. The vindication of my professional reputation through Linda's criminal conviction and the exposure of her elaborate fraud scheme provided a foundation for rebuilding my career, but the psychological scars and damaged relationships left by her systematic manipulation required much more complex and time-consuming healing processes. The revelation that my workplace harassment had been part of a broader criminal enterprise transformed my understanding of what I had experienced while also validating the instincts and perceptions that I had begun to doubt during the darkest periods of professional isolation and family betrayal. The knowledge that federal investigators had confirmed the sophisticated nature of Linda's manipulation provided external validation that helped counteract the gaslighting and psychological abuse that had characterized her management approach during my final months at GreenTech. Robert Harrison's personal apology and invitation to return to GreenTech in a senior executive capacity represented both professional vindication and a challenging decision about whether to rebuild my career within an organization that had been so thoroughly contaminated by Linda's criminal activities and toxic management practices. The board of directors had conducted a comprehensive investigation of the organizational changes and personnel decisions that had enabled Linda's fraud, resulting in significant reforms to corporate governance, executive oversight, and employee protection procedures that were designed to prevent similar infiltration and abuse. The new chief executive officer, brought in from outside the sustainable technology sector to provide fresh perspective and untainted leadership, had made restoration of collaborative culture and ethical business practices her highest priorities. The financial settlement that GreenTech offered as part of their effort to address the harm caused by Linda's criminal activities included compensation for lost wages, damaged professional reputation, and the emotional distress associated with systematic workplace harassment and career sabotage. The amount was substantial enough to provide security during a career transition period while also representing acknowledgement of the company's responsibility for failing to detect and prevent the criminal activity that had destroyed so many careers and relationships. The legal team that negotiated the settlement emphasized that acceptance would not preclude my pursuit of additional remedies against Linda personally or prevent my cooperation with ongoing criminal and civil proceedings related to her fraudulent activities. The decision about whether to return to GreenTech required careful consideration of multiple factors beyond immediate financial security, including the long-term implications for my professional development, the possibility of rebuilding trust within an organization where I had experienced such profound betrayal, and the psychological challenges of working in an environment filled with memories of systematic abuse and professional destruction. The new leadership team had implemented impressive reforms and demonstrated genuine commitment to creating a healthier organizational culture, but the fundamental question remained whether I could psychologically and professionally thrive in a workplace that would forever be associated with the most traumatic period of my career. David's perspective on my career decisions during this period reflected his own processing of the revelations about his family's manipulation and the criminal activities that had been facilitated through their relationships and trust. His mother Patricia's discovery that she had been systematically exploited by Linda for criminal purposes had created profound guilt and regret that was affecting her mental health and her relationships with all family members who had been impacted by her unwitting complicity. David's efforts to balance support for my professional recovery with care for his mother's emotional well-being created additional stress in our marriage that required careful navigation and professional counseling to address effectively. The therapy sessions that David and I attended together with a specialist in trauma recovery and family systems helped us understand how Linda's manipulation had exploited normal human tendencies toward trust and loyalty while also revealing the sophisticated psychological techniques she had used to isolate victims and prevent effective resistance to her criminal activities. The counselor explained that Linda's approach represented a form of organized psychological warfare that was designed to destroy individual and organizational resilience while creating the confusion and conflict that would prevent victims from recognizing or responding effectively to the abuse they were experiencing. The therapeutic process helped us recognize that our individual and relationship difficulties were normal responses to abnormal circumstances rather than personal failings or character defects. Emma Rodriguez's decision to accept a promotion to marketing director at GreenTech, taking over many of the responsibilities that had been stolen from me during Linda's reign of terror, provided an opportunity for me to contribute to the organization's recovery while maintaining some professional distance from the direct emotional triggers associated with full-time employment in that environment. My role as an external consultant and strategic advisor allowed me to participate in rebuilding the collaborative culture and innovative practices that had originally made GreenTech successful while also maintaining the psychological safety that came from having ultimate control over my professional circumstances and working relationships. The consulting arrangement that I negotiated with GreenTech's new leadership team provided substantial autonomy and creative freedom while also enabling me to work closely with Emma and other colleagues who had survived Linda's purge of experienced personnel. The projects I undertook focused on rebuilding client relationships, developing new marketing strategies that reflected the organization's renewed commitment to ethical business practices, and creating systems for preventing the kind of infiltration and manipulation that had enabled Linda's criminal activities. The work was professionally satisfying and financially rewarding while also contributing to the broader effort to restore GreenTech's reputation and competitive position within the sustainable technology sector. Marcus Chen's promotion to Chief Operations Officer represented another positive development in GreenTech's recovery process, as his integrity and institutional knowledge made him an ideal leader for rebuilding the operational systems and collaborative relationships that had been systematically destroyed during Linda's tenure. His first-hand experience of her criminal activities and manipulative management practices informed his approach to developing safeguards and oversight mechanisms that would prevent similar infiltration while also supporting the kind of innovation and creative problem-solving that had previously distinguished GreenTech's approach to complex client challenges. The criminal trial proceedings that unfolded over the following months provided additional details about Linda's methods and motivations while also revealing the broader network of accomplices and victims that had been affected by her fraudulent activities. Her testimony during plea negotiations described a sophisticated system for identifying vulnerable organizations and individuals who could be exploited for financial gain, involving extensive research into corporate structures, family relationships, and personal circumstances that could be leveraged for criminal purposes. The revelation that she had targeted multiple companies and individuals across several states over a period of years demonstrated the professional and systematic nature of her criminal enterprise. Patricia's recovery from the psychological trauma of discovering her manipulation and unwitting complicity in criminal activities required extensive therapy and family support that helped her understand how normal human qualities like generosity, trust, and desire to help others had been exploited by someone with sophisticated knowledge of psychological manipulation techniques. The counseling process revealed that Patricia's vulnerability to Linda's manipulation had resulted partly from loneliness and desire for meaningful relationships following her retirement from active professional life. The garden club activities and environmental interests that had initially seemed like healthy social engagement had been deliberately targeted by Linda as pathways for accessing information and relationships that could be exploited for criminal gain. The civil litigation that followed Linda's criminal conviction resulted in substantial financial recovery for GreenTech and individual victims while also establishing legal precedents for addressing sophisticated forms of corporate fraud and workplace harassment that exploit family relationships and personal connections. The judgments against Linda and her criminal associates provided some measure of justice while also creating financial resources for supporting the recovery and rehabilitation efforts that were necessary to address the comprehensive damage caused by her fraudulent activities. The professional recognition that I received from industry associations and publications for my role in exposing and documenting Linda's criminal activities helped restore my reputation while also establishing me as a thought leader in corporate security, workplace harassment prevention, and ethical business practices. The speaking engagements and consulting opportunities that emerged from this recognition provided platforms for sharing insights about sophisticated manipulation techniques while also contributing to broader efforts to prevent similar criminal infiltration of legitimate businesses and professional relationships. The decision to establish my own consulting firm specializing in organizational security and ethical business practices represented the culmination of my professional recovery while also creating opportunities to help other companies and individuals recognize and prevent the kind of systematic manipulation and fraud that had nearly destroyed my career and personal life. The business model I developed combined traditional marketing and strategic planning services with specialized expertise in identifying and addressing organizational vulnerabilities that could be exploited by criminals or other malicious actors seeking to infiltrate and damage legitimate enterprises. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.